Trudeau lectures Canadians about dialogue and patience while Albertans show us how it's done. The Conservatives aren't invited to the party, make some threats, and then walk it back. And John Tory's transformation into a social justice warrior is complete. Finally, a welcome change that I thought would never happen. Welcome to the Soundbite for the week of February 17th, 2020. As we all know, the illegal protests in Canada are expanding and have steadily moved towards the east. These blockades have continued to impact normal Canadians as they try to go about their business, and things are certainly getting a little bit more heated. The fact that these protests have proliferated so quickly is more evidence that they are not organic in nature and are in fact well-funded and organized by others. This reality is not lost on most of us, and some Albertans have simply had enough. There are several videos that have surfaced on social media of people going to the sites of these illegal blockades and removing the materials used for them while the protesters stand and watch and do nothing. There is one video that went viral of a transport trailer pulling into a parking lot where the entrance was being blocked by about half a dozen protesters. The driver of the truck didn't stop as he turned into the driveway, which caused the protesters to giddy up and get out of the way. Fortunately, throughout this whole spectacle, there has been no real confrontations and no one has been hurt. But I suspect this is only a matter of time, especially since law enforcement seems to be on vacation. Back in Ottawa, the Liberals continue to do nothing, with the Prime Minister and his cabinet repeating calls for patience and dialogue while the social and economic impact mounts. Andrew Scheer gave a passionate missive directed at Justin Trudeau, but as usual, I doubt he understood anything that was going on around him. He did eventually call what he termed an incident response group meeting with the opposition leaders to discuss the issue, but then decided to exclude the Conservatives, who are in fact the official opposition. Later, during a scrum, Trudeau was asked why the Conservatives were excluded from the meeting, when his answer was that Scheer's earlier conduct had disqualified him from participation. However, the media wasn't buying what Trudeau was selling and have rightly vilified the selfie king for most of the week. In response, the Conservatives announced a plan to introduce a vote of non-confidence in the Liberals. However, that idea quickly withered on the vine and they have since walked this back. Although there is no doubt the motion would have failed, they should have continued with it as a matter of principle. But alas, another missed opportunity by a party who was still trying to figure out what they stand for. In the end, it didn't really matter anyway, as Justin Trudeau held a press conference on Friday where he proceeded to say the same thing that others, specifically Andrew Scheer, said throughout the week, which is the blockades must stop. Funny how what his leftist echo chamber felt was unacceptable just a few days earlier was now suddenly acceptable. I suspect the real reason he changed his mind was either some polling numbers and focus group information came in, or some of the commodities that have been impacted by these blockades are dangerously low in Quebec. Whatever the reason, it certainly had nothing to do with a newfound respect for the law. In Toronto, the city is starting to really feel the pinch of the homeless crisis, and despite Mayor Tory's deep concern about the issue, things have not improved. He was inspired this week, though, as his new idea to solve or lessen the impact of the issue is to encourage seniors to open their homes to the homeless. I guess the irony that seniors who are having their own issues surrounding affordability and care are likely the least able to do this, even if they wanted to. I can only imagine what would happen if seniors were to take his advice and begin inviting complete strangers into their homes, many of whom have mental issues. While of course his suggestion is utter foolishness, it does illustrate that Tory has no idea what to do about this problem. The various strike actions in Ontario by the teacher unions seem to have no end in sight, with the same old tired rhetoric being tossed around. In predictable fashion, the union is casting the government as an evil monster, while casting themselves as the white knight who will slay the beast who is robbing our children of their futures. Well, this makes for some good theater. This isn't playing well anywhere in Ontario, as an overwhelming majority of people don't support this action. On a recent drive home, I came across no less than 4 picket lines, and the people driving by weren't honking their horns in support like in past strike actions. Quite the opposite, and they are making their anger known. A support worker friend of my wife's told her that people are routinely giving them the finger and using very colorful language to demonstrate their anger. This time, however, the unions have misread the public, and this work to rule action is not going their way, to which I must give props to Stephen Lecce, who has remained steadfast in his opposition. It's nice to see an elected official do the right thing and not be afraid to push back against the monolithic unions who have become predatory political activists. Once this thing eventually ends, I hope he turns his attention to the sex ed curriculum, which is the one campaign promise that matters most to me. Finally, there were a few hashtags that were trending multiple times this week, and both illustrate the frustrations that people have with politicians generally and the Prime Minister specifically. Those hashtags were Trudeau must go and Trudeau must resign. Both are true, of course, and I can only hope when the time comes that people not only send Trudeau packing, but his entire cabinet as well. Well, have a great weekend, everyone, and always remember that a country without basic freedoms, especially freedom of speech, is a country without a future.